Welcome to another exciting new episode of Talking About Stoicism, and I thought we would continue with letter 88. I think I said last time I might come back to this one. Letter 88, Lucius Annaeus Seneca. This is the letter where he talks about the liberal arts, but I was reading this earlier, and this one passage really struck me. It's short, but it's interesting. Is it really true that tomorrow will never take me by surprise? Surely what happens to a person without his knowledge does take him by surprise. I do not know what will happen, but I do know what can happen. I exempt none of that from expectation. I expect it all, and if I'm spared any of it, I count myself fortunate. Tomorrow does take me by surprise, if it lets me off. Yet even then, it does not surprise me, for just as I know there is nothing that cannot happen to me, so also I know that none of it is certain to happen. Thus, I expect the best, but prepare for the worst. It could not be more stoic, and as I'm recording this, it's Sunday night, and I think in North America the week starts on Sunday, but in Europe the week starts on Monday, at least where I'm from, so I thought it was kind of interesting as a thought. For me, Sunday night always remains the start of the week. The new week is about to start, and as always, the week will come with its own trials and tribulations, right? This happens to everyone. In my case, I'm working on a project at work, which I think is quite exciting, but it's going to be quite a bit of work. I have 2 advanced courses that I'm teaching. For one of those, the students got this week off to work on a take-home exam on advanced statistics, which is definitely the crowd favorite. So and then on top of that, there are other things that I'm working on, that I'm trying to finish up, as everybody does, right? Everybody has these things, and I think how Seneca describes this is really nice. So, first of all, I like this idea of, I do not know what will happen, but I do know what can happen. And that, I think, is characteristic of Seneca's very simple eloquence. He has a very frank way of saying things, where Marcus Aurelius is can be a bit more brooding, and Epictetus is very interesting, but Epictetus didn't write that stuff himself, right? It was one of his students who wrote that. Seneca here really writes. He writes to his friend, and I like that clarity. I don't know what will happen, but I don't know what can happen, and this kind of puts us in the mindset of I suppose the premeditatio malorum that we've talked about before. You try to imagine as a Stoic once in a while, not all the time, but once in a while, the worst thing that can happen. If you're nervous about something, picture the worst thing that can happen, and then what will happen could be the worst thing, in which case you should be fairly prepared, but realistically it could also quite probably not be the worst thing that can happen, and then whatever happens is not as bad as, statistically speaking, the worst thing that can happen. So we've talked about that before, and I think it's a valid exercise if you're particularly nervous. I really like this point of, I exempt none of that from expectation. I expect it all, and if I'm spared of it, I count myself fortunate. Right? Again, you think of the worst thing that might happen, and then if it does not happen, then that's a win. And I think that very often, and this is certainly not a thought original to me, but very often we work on the premise that the worst thing will happen. We have this tendency to look at things from the perspective of how do you put that? It's going to be terrible. It's going to be wretched. The 3 things could happen, and it's going to be the worst thing that'll happen to me. And Seneca's very clear about that, right? I expect it all, and if I'm spared of it, I count myself fortunate. And I think that is a very classic Stoic way of looking at it. Not only that you prepare yourself for the worst, and then if whatever ends up happening is not the worst, then that's a win. But in general, right? Think of everything that could happen. Try to put things in perspective, and then when those things happen, you are more prepared. And I think that is very valuable. Tomorrow does take me by surprise if it lets me off. Then again, that states the same thing, right? If everything is kind of okay tomorrow, that's the surprise. Because I am already anticipating that there's going to be unpleasant stuff. But if I anticipate that and the worst thing does not happen, well then so be it. Just today, I slightly lose thought, but I made a turn left. I was driving straight. Someone else made a turn, sort of the next street, made a turn and just changed into my lane without signaling, without indicating. She cannot have seen me. That was very, very close to an accident, and I had to slam the brake to not hit her and give her space to move in. Again, no signaling, no indication whatsoever. Must have been someone who was zoned out for a second. That could have been a collision. That could have been unpleasant, and then I don't think anyone would have gotten hurt. It was not a high-speed thing, but still, then you have all the hassle, and you have the insurance, and you have all these things. None of that happened. So a terrible thing could have happened, right? But it ended up not happening. If I'm spared any of it, I count myself fortunate. Tomorrow does take me by surprise if it lets me off. Today I was let off, and it was close. But it worked. Yet even then, it does not surprise me, for just as I know there is nothing that cannot happen to me, so also I know that none of it is certain to happen. Thus I expect the best, but prepare for the worst. And I really like that statement too, right? That sentiment of a lot of things can happen, but that doesn't mean they will happen. And again, that's a very stoic way of looking at things. All kinds of things can happen. These things are not all within my control. A lot of things are not within my control. This lady moving into my lane, that was not within my control. Fortunately, it was within my control to brake in time, assess that situation, and get out of it unscathed. But if I myself would have zoned out for just a second, there was a possibility I would have reacted too slowly, because it was really incredibly close. There was not a car length between the two of us. So it was close. I'm fortunate, and I count myself fortunate that this time I got out, right? And this thought of, I really like his precision, his clarity, and the beautiful elegance of it. For just as I know there is nothing that cannot happen to me, so also I know that none of it is certain to happen. Even though all kinds of terrible things might happen, that doesn't mean they will happen. It doesn't mean they actually will manifest themselves. Thus, I expect the best, but prepare for the worst. That's, of course, a classic saying. And it reminds me of a passage in the Enchiridion of Epictetus, which is the book that started this video series now quite a while ago, because this series has been going, I did the math recently, it's been going for a long time. Anyway, one of the most powerful passages in Epictetus' Enchiridion that really struck me, and struck me at the right time, was that he describes how he is preparing to go to a bathhouse, and that he says, okay, so now you need to imagine everything that can happen there. They're going to be loud people, obnoxious people. You may get splashed on. Your stuff may get stolen. But the thing is, what you do in such a case is think about that might well happen. And you make yourself a promise. You say, I'm going to get a bath and not get upset. Now, if I do only the one thing, I take that bath and I get annoyed with all these frustrating people, and maybe my stuff gets stolen, I got splashed on, there's loud people, obnoxious people, then I only do one of the two things. But the trick lies in doing both. I'm going to have a bath and I will be unperturbed. I'm definitely paraphrasing, but that's the gist of that story. And it struck me as such a powerful illustration of how you can handle these kinds of situations. You can handle, or you can anticipate, I should say, the things that may happen this week, but why not make a promise to yourself? I'm going to enjoy my week, and I'm going to do everything I can to be unperturbed. Whatever happens, I'm going to do my best. It may not always work. I may fail once or twice. I might get frustrated with someone, a colleague, or whatever. I might get annoyed, but I'm going to try and do my best to keep my calm and make it through that week. And if I only do one thing but not the other, if I only make it through the week or maybe kind of enjoy myself but I still get frustrated, I'm only doing one thing but not the other. The goal is to try and do both things. And again, that there have been complicated moments in my life where that thought has saved me. I'm going to do this, but I'm also going to do that. And if I don't manage to do that, I've only done one of the two, and I should really try to do both. So anyway, this was it for this week. I hope this was useful. Food for thought. I hope you have a lovely week, and I mean that. Now, I also hope that your week is going to be wonderful, terrific, and no terrible things happen. But maybe you can let me know in the chat how you prepare. Sorry, I keep saying the chat. Sorry, in the comments. Maybe you can let me know how you prepare for the week. I mean, when you know that something big is coming up, how do you prepare for it? As always, I hope this was useful. Thanks for sticking with me, because I really, we have over 250 of these Stoic videos now. When you think about it, I try to do one a week. That's work most weeks. There are 52 weeks in a year. Do the math on how long this series has been going, right? It's insane, because I really didn't plan for this to become kind of 1/3 of this channel, because it's 2 fountain pen videos and this a week. I certainly didn't expect it to run so long. And as I've said many times, these videos get fewer views than the pen stuff, and that's perfectly understandable, but I find it very interesting that people keep watching. So thank you, because without you, these videos wouldn't exist. I assume that if you keep watching them, you get something out of them, and that's lovely. And I'm very grateful, and I mean that. So you have a good week. Let me know how you prepare, and that's all there is to it. Bye.